Hey everybody, Christian from Treasure Town here, and today we're going to be going over all about the 1989 penny, the ones that you want to be looking for because there's some really cool stuff, whether it's a variety, it's an error, or it's just conditional rarity. You want to be on the lookout for these. Look closely at the coins, make sure that you don't have something good. I'll also at the end sort of throw in a bonus 1989D penny that you also should definitely be aware of, because there is one that is probably going to sell or has sold for several $1,000s, sort of as an anomaly, but different things to look out for. I'll have a hopefully very clear explanation for you along with photos and approximate values in the presentation that we'll head to right now. So here we've got our 1989 Lincoln Memorial Cent. I've got a lot of information here if you want to pause and read it. If you haven't seen it before, I do this on all of these Lincoln Memorial pennies, so I don't want to spend too much time here, but in terms of the conditional rarity, there's some potential, but it has to really get to mint state 68 before it's worth submitting, and you'd want to submit these in red condition to PCGS, so they have to be bright red with virtually no flaws, so that you can make your money back. If it comes back 67, and 67 plus is a really tough grade to attain, you're going to have lost money. So that's why it's really important you just get the best of the best, and those are almost never out there. So that's why the collectors obviously pay so much for them. Over 7 billion produced, that's one of the highest totals. The things to look for, so the first group, we're going to talk about the varieties. These are not super valuable. 1989 is not a crazy year for this, but at the same time there is a collector base, so you can see some nice extra thickness, a little bit of distortion sort of in the bar of the 9, the bottom of the 8. You can see over here it's a pretty thin, normally bottom of the 8, so to get the extra thickness over here is something significant and interesting, and these are ungraded values. You wouldn't want to grade this sort of thing, though you could at ANAX if you wanted to. The second thing, similar, you can see that sort of northwest southeast spread here, or it's not really a spread, but like distortion in that 9. Even if you compare it to the 9 just a little bit of a ways down, you can see the difference. So this one's a nice coin. There's a fair amount of different extra thicknesses. It's not super obvious, and not too many people are looking for these. This one I think is a little bit nicer. This time you can see more of the spread to the bottom, in that same direction of the 8, but then also a little bit of a separation in the R, a little bit of a split serif. So that extra thickness all through the letterings, but then it's also a class 2, more traditional doubled die. There's also some doubled reverses. So this first one, I don't quite see the notch. I can see it a little bit in the C actually over there. I think it's like extra thickness over here in the FG, though I'm not quite as, super familiar with this one. I think the notch in the C. These are pretty minor varieties, but it's still something, people enjoy hunting them, and I often don't do it for the value, just for something interesting to do. You can see this notch on the R as well. So that's going to be, evident of the more traditional class 2 doubling. And then over here you get a third one where, again, that R in America on the reverse is the marker for where you're going to want to be looking to see if you've got the double die. Now there's also some errors, and then we'll get to that 1989D bonus that I had discussed. This one's a fold over strike, a really interesting and rare type of error. I assume that the coin is like spinning or somehow upright in the striking chamber, and then when the dies come down with so much force that they actually bend the penny planchet, and that's where you see the underlying zinc composition that the 1989 pennies have. 97.5% zinc, 2.5% copper, shows through as it gets bent, but it's great that it has the date still on it, and it's a wonder that it made its way out of the mint. $960. This one was really confusing because it's struck on a clad 10-cent planchet, and I was like, that just looks like a penny planchet. Now it makes sense because you can see, the 9 is cut off over here. So are some of the lettering in the end of trust in United States of America. I think it must have toned in an interesting way, but it sold for $460 a while ago and was an interesting find. And then lastly, we've got this obverse cud die break. Really neat. When the coins are being struck, the dies can wear down, resulting in die cracks, or like a major cud die break, shattered die, split die, something more apparent, and that's what this is. It's been a hot area of collecting recently. You see the reverse, when the metal is flowing onto the obverse side, the reverse isn't going to get the impression on the States of America, and this sold for $90. And then our last coin was struck on a pre-1983 copper planchet, 1989D. It's crazy that this was produced. It sold for $7,500 a little while ago, And the idea is that they used to have the copper planchet. Remember, if you go back a few slides, here's the zinc one. Well, they had the transition in 1982. Somehow an old, pre-1983 copper planchet was struck with the 1989D penny. Somebody must have weighed it, looked a little bit off, didn't look like the traditional zinc composition, and again sold for $7,500. So it sort of shows it could be going on any of these sort of late 80s, theoretically even later than that, but late 80s for sure. Somebody already found, they found it in 1983, which makes a lot more sense, but this one's also interesting. So hope that this presentation has been helpful. A lot of different coins here that we went over, whether it's varieties, errors, or the sweet sort of mule or transitional planchet error, and then the conditional rarities. A lot to learn here. Hope that this was helpful. Thanks for watching the video. I'd encourage you to like the video, comment, and make sure to subscribe to my channel. And I also have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and some other social media platforms. You can also go to my main channel website, treasuretownYT.com, to learn more about the channel and sort of stay in contact. I also will eventually host all of these videos on coinsmetalscards.com, which will be both news, marketplace, and coin information. I do have the goal of eventually getting pretty much every US coin, date, mint mark, denomination on the channel with a similar video to the one that you just watched, and that will likely all be hosted there. And then I also have treasuretowncoins.com, which is sort of my coin dealing wing, coin dealing only entity that is a little bit less focused on content production. So thank you so much, and I'll look forward to seeing you on some of my other videos. I also have videos that are not just the date, mint mark, denomination recap in this format, so you can check some of those out, and I'll have fun seeing you there.